It's a shame. It's just me and you this evening, Liam. You and I. Not that I dislike taking some one-on-one time with my pal, but of all weeks for Jake to make a big life decision, moving out west for a couple months, big internship for him. We wish him well. But of all the weeks to not be on the show, the one right after he meets Newt fucking Gingrich at LAX. Are you kidding me?
It's a big one. I wish he was here to tell the story. But...
Oh my god! Like, has he not been a part of the show for the last couple of years? This is like that's like a Pot on Lansdowne Mad Lib right there.
You couldn't write it any better. It's basically the fan fiction we received last week.
Oh, we have to fucking read that. Don't let me forget. Okay, we have to read because we did get the fan fiction. Let me put that down in my notes here. Fan fiction, all caps. Do not forget with 2 exclamation points.
And Jake was supposed to read it too, which makes it even more perfect.
Yeah, what are you gonna do? Maybe I'll delegate that to you at the end of the show. But the point is, for those of you who aren't aware, our fearless third co-host of the show, Jake Wonger, again mentioned he's out west in Los Angeles, the city of angels. A couple of days ago, after we recorded last week, he touches down at LAX, and who does he run into but none other than the architect of the 1992 Republican Revolution, Newt Gingrich. And he texts into the group, and Jake has a tendency to do this. He just goes like, "Oh my god, guys," and it's like,
and it's like cliffhanger. He builds the suspense.
He holds it for 5 minutes. I was like, "Oh boy, what's this gonna be? Like, is this gonna be underwhelming?"
Could be a horrifying tragedy.
Nope, it's Newt. It's old Newt Gingrich. I've been thinking about it multiple times a day, honestly, since it's happened. Because Jake has this ability to run into the most random people out of nowhere.
All the time. He ran into Whitlock up in Portland. Was this? Can't remember if this was during the fall. It had to have been after the season, sometime in October, November. God, he runs into like the Jordan's Furniture Guy regularly.
Yes, Elliot. Yep. Elliot's pretty easy to spot with a ponytail, at least.
Yeah, that's true. God, who else does he have on his list?
Well, I mean, he didn't run into John Taffer. You know what I mean? He went out of his way to find John.
He sought him out.
But I still feel like that's, notable enough where, you could still add that to the list. Did you have anything to add there, Liam?
That's all I got.
This is where we need Jake to fill in the pod. Also, shout out to Sam at Red Schmucks on Twitter, follower of the program, getting us the airbrushed picture of Jake and Newt Gingrich. We might have to make that the episode picture when we tweet out the link for this episode, just so people know what we're talking about. But yeah, no, just random members of the pod. And also, the best touch of it all is that he's wearing the Smiley hat while meeting Newt Gingrich. Smiley, envious of meeting his boy Newt.
It couldn't have gone any perfectly.
It really was. I mean, again, that's like that feels like an AI generated POL picture, but no, that is the real deal Holyfield. So, no Jake this week. Wish he could have been able to recall the story himself. Maybe when we get him on the air next time, but not to be the case. In the meantime, though, we have Tom Werner, certified yapper, a.k.a. Liam. I am Bob Howery, a.k.a. Fitz. This is Pot on Lansdowne. Glad you could join us for another installment of It's Over, the ongoing series of Pot on Lansdowne episodes where we talk about it being over. This is volume, I think, 57 now. We're on Liam going into this episode. A lot to get into. A reckoning, it almost feels like, as we hit the home stretch of the offseason. We're only about a month away until pitchers and catchers reporting. Only a week or two away, maybe 3 weeks away from your on the spot assignment of Truck Day.
Yeah, man, it's got to be 3 weeks from now. It's usually like that first or second week in February. Like
yes,
somewhere around like the 10th or whatnot. Is what I'm imagining.
Yeah, that sounds about right. You got to be Johnny on the spot for that one, reporting live on the scene. I know I've said that before.
I think it might be a crowd that's out for blood. I gotta say, they rolled out Wally and Tessie last year, but it was also very cold, so not a lot of people were out there. So I'm interested to see if the weather cooperates. You might get an angry mob. this time around.
These poor guys just throwing bats in there. Like, I don't have anything to do with this.
just the poor clubbies.
I'm making minimum wage right now, just trying to, load up this truck with some balls and some gloves and stuff like that. Come on, I didn't do anything. But no, let's start getting into the brass tacks of the last couple of hours. Really,
it's literally like, thankfully they've given us a bunch of things
timely
to
stuff
talk about
to talk
today,
about.
because there wasn't much else coming into today, I gotta say.
Yeah, there's no other transactions. I guess that's kind of part of the story of what we're going to be talking about. There's not many other transactions, but yeah, for once we actually get some timely news as we're recording. So maybe our luck is changing for the better in 2024. 2 articles dropping on this Tuesday, January the 16th of the year of our Lord 2024.
I did find a third one, by the way. Fitz.
You did find a third one.
When we go to break, I'm gonna skim it real quick. It's from Cotillo as of like 30 minutes ago.
Is it Cotillo or is it Cotillo?
I think it's Cotillo.
More like Hispanic, Spanish.
I think that's why he's like the Mexican correspondent. I think that's the whole bit, right?
Well, maybe that makes it a bit that he pronounces it like a Y. That the point doesn't matter. We'll get into that third article later. You want to start with the Breslow one for the Boston Globe? Want to start there?
Let's do it. Why not?
Let's start there. All right.
Kick it off with Pete.
Pete Abraham released an article. There's an ad on here. Well, he talked with Craig Breslow. I was trying to read the headline for it. I'm sure you've all seen it at this point.
I've got it for you. The headline: Craig Breslow acknowledges that it's been a challenge, quote, to find starting pitching for the Red Sox.
And certainly it has. And it goes in here. I mean, we could sit here and just read the article to you. We're not going to do that. Read a couple of the interesting excerpts here. The big one that made the rounds on social, as Pete Abe was teasing it on the app formerly known as Twitter, now known as X. The big quote here, as he's talking about, having to hold on to the big 3 prospects in Anthony, Meyer, and Teal. When he was hired in October, Breslow said he believed ownership was committed to building a contender and would spend what it took to reach that goal. What's his answer now? And this is quoting Breslow. That's a fair question. As I've gotten to know this organization better through the conversations I've had with ownership, they absolutely are still supportive of assembling a World Series team as quickly as we possibly can. But I think the reality is that it's going to require a step forward from the young position players. It's going to require the build-out of a talent pipeline of arms that we can acquire, we draft, and we can develop internally. And it's going to require aggressive player development in the minor leagues and in the major leagues, so guys that we think are the next wave, Meyer and Anthony and Teal, that group, are not just big leaguers, but impact big leaguers. The convergence of all those pieces is the fastest path to a World Series team. We want to build this thing in a way that excuse me, I was doing pretty well up until that point. We want to build this thing in a way that there's not just quality once in a while, but there's quality paired with consistency. And there's other parts of this article that we can get into, specifically who he names as the candidates for the pitching rotation. But I want to start with that quote there, Liam, because obviously that's a bit disappointing to read as we start the new year and we're a couple weeks away towards spring training, and in the wake of 2 straight back-to-back 5th place finishes in the basement of the American League East. That's disappointing because you take that initially, and the thing that jumps out in my mind is, okay, so we're punting in 24 again. Okay, good to know. But with that, at the very least, and I understand this is grasping at straws, I understand that this is, I wouldn't even call it a consolation prize. It's kind of pathetic to call it a consolation prize, but at the absolute bare minimum, at least someone's telling the fucking truth on Jersey Street nowadays. Jesus Christ, it took us this long.
No, I gotta say, I feel like
a spade is finally being called a spade right now.
I feel like Stephen A. or Skip Bayless. Like, I have to take like a deep breath before I sort of go in here. But yeah, I don't know. I try to lean towards the positive side here on the program.
I think we all do.
But
maybe not Jake, but hi Jake.
Yeah. Jake lives for It's So Over.
So I
but
guess it's kicks.
I don't know, man. Like it just feels, and I had just been getting the sense over the last couple weeks, post Giolito and once Yamamoto was off the board and then Shota was off the board, like just kind of felt like, reading the tea leaves, like nobody's coming. There's no one else on the way, really. And I don't know. I mean, it feels like reading this article from Pete today. I felt like it was just like the same comments we've been getting from Heim over the last 4 years. So it's like it's just giving me meet the new boss, same as the old boss vibes, where it's not necessarily baseball operations that's like, oh, it's not like we're not being aggressive, both internally or externally, but I don't know. They're putting a lot of faith in guys that are already on the roster, and we've seen what's happened the last 2 years when that's happened, or when they've sort of leaned that way. And guys, it hasn't really worked. They've hung around. They've hung around for half the season into late July, early August.
You start talking yourself into
yeah, like maybe like a little late round. You sneak in as a wild card, but the rosters they've constructed the last 2 years where they've tried to work around the margins, they're like flat out, they're not getting it done. Like this constant tooling around, looking for value elsewhere around the 40-man roster and consistently churning arms up and down. It hasn't worked, quite frankly. And I get it. I love the spot the organization's in right now. Like from a player development standpoint, I think Heim
for the organization, like the farm system, like not like full stop. You love the situation.
No. The major, excluding
just
the
to
major
clarify,
excluding the major league product, I am very optimistic about where they are from that development standpoint. But where is the help from the major league roster coming from? You've even heard Cora say it in the last few months, where he's like, "We're not here to build the best farm system in the league. Like, we're here to win games at the major league level." And you haven't really done anything to make me or the casual fan at this standpoint think they're going to be any better than they have been the last 2 years. And I mean, obviously, we're sickos here on the program. We're still going to watch every night.
Yeah, hold that thought for later. I did want to bring up that sort of thing.
But, going through this winter, it's just been demoralizing. And I couldn't tell you, maybe like going into 2020 post Mookie trade, like where I've just been kind of feeling like, what is there really to look forward to with this roster? And obviously, like, that's extremist talk. Obviously, there are exciting pieces still on the major league team, but just from a fan standpoint, you're like, what is going to get me out to the ballpark to see these guys? And that's just kind of how I've been feeling all day. And yes, we keep saying it. There's still a lot of off season left, but the sun's getting real low.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like Montgomery's happening. I don't think a trade's coming either, just based on the asking prices. So, I mean, you said it off the bat, like at least someone's being honest with us at this point. Like,
yeah,
the curtain's down. He's essentially telling us what we've kind of felt like has been the case this entire time. But I don't necessarily love the truth is coming on the same day. And this is a personal thing. I don't think it's a coincidence that all these pieces are coming out today in these interviews with Craig and Tom Werner. With 72 hours to go before winter weekend. Today is the same day that season ticket holders could renew. So they're really good at picking their timing.
Tinfoil hat on Lansdowne right now. Are you kidding me?
I don't think it's a coincidence, especially with winter weekend coming up. Maybe they didn't pay any mind to season ticket renewals and whatnot, but hey, it's all happening this week. So
You know, it's very interesting you mentioned that. I didn't even think of that. I think that's a pretty I mean that's at least some good food for thought because this entire offseason for the most part, especially when it comes to the ownership group and even a bit, from the front office from Breslow and company, it's we've said it on the show. It's been Fort Knox. You haven't really heard a ton of stuff one way or another. It says right here in this article that this is the first time Breslow has spoken publicly about the acquisition of Giolito. And that happened a couple weeks ago at this rate. This is the first time he spoke publicly about the acquisition of Tyler O'Neill, believe it or not, according to this article. And that was in early December. So yeah, I think that's an interesting point you raise, considering how quiet it's been from the front office, right, wrong, or indifferent. Maybe it's nice that they're kind of moving in the shadows. We don't know what the next move is going to be. Never let them know your next move, right? That video of the guy stepping out of the car and doing all the random stuff, that might just be Craig Breslow going forward. But yeah, that's interesting. You have all those moving things in place, and we know how there's whispers of how things work in, with the media for not only the Red Sox, but any other teams, leaking information, things like that, that we could only hope to aspire to one day here on Pod on Lansdowne. But that's not the point. That's an interesting thought. Outside of that, I agree a lot with what you said. I would say just based off of some of the willingness early on, we can only base what we've seen from Breslow. We can only base on what we've seen so far. But at least he seems a little bit willing to think outside of the box and be aggressive, trading Sale, trading Verdugo, going after, potentially a high value sort of a guy in Tyler O'Neill if things start to click for him. I think it's a little different in terms, like hearing what he says and looking what he does. I think it's a little different than the Bloom situation, but I do get your point in that. But yeah, as we get closer to Truck Day and spring training, I think you're right. It's tough to see reinforcements coming via trade or via free agency because there hasn't been a ton to suggest that anything seismic is coming. There's been no indication that that we can expect that outside of one quote that someone walked back, and we'll talk about that in just a few minutes. All of the big pieces for pitching, for example, that have come off of the market. Nola, I would hesitate to even qualify as that because that was a pretty quick extension. But you look at Montgomery at this rate, what you mentioned, probably not going to happen. Come to accept that. Snell doesn't sound possible
especially
at this rate
asking
either.
for $200 million. No, I don't think that's happening.
Right? The Werner, and again, we can go into it. He thought that they were in a mix for Yamamoto, but to quote Jake, the game was rigged from the start there. Don't know how seriously we were involved in those negotiations. Any of these big guys outside of maybe, Imanaga, you haven't heard much of the Red Sox being involved in those conversations. Now, again, is that a matter of them being tight-lipped? I don't know. The point is, there hasn't been much to suggest that anything is coming there. There's no reason to believe it based off of what we've seen not only this offseason, but the last couple of off seasons in terms of, these seismic sort of real, changing transactions. The biggest one we've had in recent years is Trevor Story, and you only got him on a discount because he was fucking hurt. You know what I mean? He was coming off an injury.
It's like I'm trying to think. That and Yoshida were Time's biggest signings, and I don't know, man. Story for 140. If that's the most you've shelled out, I mean, okay. The ownership apologists will be like, oh, they gave Devers, $300 million.
Sure.
Yes.
Sure. But that should be a no-brainer.
But literally, I don't know. It's the bare minimum. It's $300 million, but it's also the bare minimum after you lost Bogarts and
that's
Mookie.
Yeah, exactly. You only locked down one of those three.
You kind of had one option there. God, nightmare scenario. Imagine if 21 never happened and the Devers extension never got done.
Yeah, some people are like, oh, well, maybe we should have just, traded Devers when we had the chance,
Absolutely
or maybe we should trade him. No, because then that's one more fucking hole to fill.
Yeah.
No.
What do you?
No.
We're looking for impact players.
Yeah,
and Christ,
a guy who could drive in 100+ runs is an impact player.
Even fucking Tom Werner said it. I think it was the same day he made the Full Throttle comment where he's like, we need players with high WAR. Yeah, no kidding. So where are they?
Yeah. If you trade that guy, again, I want to transition here, and again, he mentions, you know, not wanting to get a controllable pitching asset at the price of, you know, a Teal or an Anthony or a Marcelo, which I do get that. I understand that 100%. And Pete Abe astutely points out that with the way some, that the free agent market has been going, and also given the prospects that the Red Sox have in the system, maybe that's not enough to woo Luzardo or, you know, your George Kirby or Logan Gilbert,
I
anyone
mean,
who might have thought. But
I think that's my biggest hang up. I'm like, we don't need to gut the farm. Just go spend money on Montgomery. He fits the team perfectly. He's exactly what the team needs. All it takes is money. And right now, especially if you move Kenley, you have the money to go out and sign a guy like that.
yeah,
You have space to still be comfortably under that first luxury tax tier, you know.
Yeah,
so
even
if you choose to do so. So I don't understand, especially, and I don't know if we want to completely transition into the pitching staff, but like,
well, yeah, I wanted to. Oh, I hit my mic. I did want to mention that Breslow sees Giolito, Bayo, Cutter, and Pavetta being identified within the rotation, which is good. I like that part. That's fine. It's not totally moving the needle, but that's to be expected there. Like, okay, whatever. And if you added Montgomery to that, it's like, okay, you can squint and see a
that's what I'm saying. Like, people, like some folks on Twitter are like, that's still a solid staff, which I agree with.
They're
I
going to
think
eat
it is.
your innings. Montgomery and Giolito are going to give you 175, and then
But no,
hopefully
I
Bayo
was
can
even
get you north of
saying
150.
even that to my like that was my point though. It was like people were saying like if you didn't add anybody else as it stands, it's a solid rotation, and I agree. It probably gets you to that same mid-July, early August. You're around the fringe of a wild card, but you're still missing a ton of innings if that's the rotation you're going in with. So
Yep.
okay, add Montgomery, and literally all our problems in the world would be solved if Jordan Montgomery came to
Then
Boston.
you package.
I think of that.
You could package a Houck and a couple of prospects. There's your right-handed bat that you can get. You know, make that money match with whatever Houck is making. I don't know who it could be. You know what I mean? But you could.
No, I wouldn't even move any arms after that. Like I would just
you don't have to.
sign Montgomery, and then cool. That's your five. Your five is set. And then okay, if someone goes down, which inevitably
Houck can get a spot start.
They will.
Yeah, Whitlock can get a
Witt,
spot start.
or
Winkowski.
Wink, if they really, which I still don't understand stretching him out, but okay. Worst case scenario, he's your third line of defense.
Yeah, it's worth mentioning that in this article that Houck, Whitlock, and Winkowski would be competing for a spot. I originally had been about the idea to make Garrett Whitlock a starter. I've kind of shied off of that since over the last year or so. I still think he could be a good enough of a pitcher, but I really think he'd be better effective being that kind of stretch guy, 2 innings, you know, a couple times a week. Same with Houck, same with Winkowski, which makes it all the more maddening why they won't get that.
Don't fix it,
right? Because there's no other. I mean, there's no other huge arms in the system who's ready to go into the rotation now. You know what I mean?
Sure isn't.
So again, you said if it just costs the money, but it seems like we've kind of gone past that point. So again, long story short, I appreciate the honesty from Breslow, but it's still disappointing to read. As it looks to be another one of those, you know, you're right around 500 sort of years, you know. Hey, I mean,
I'm just happy there's like, okay, at the very least, silver lining, we got some transparency.
Right, exactly.
Which, I mean, should be the bare minimum. But with ownership at the very least, I don't put it on Craig. Like the transparency has been the biggest issue. Even when they're winning, they're not transparent.
And
so
that's
just fucking shoot it to us straight. Like,
and
that's all I want.
Yes, I'm sorry, I don't mean to keep cutting you off there, but that's a good transition into the second article that we have to talk about today. But first, ad time. Are you going to go through that article?
Oh yeah, let me skim Cotillo real quick. I think it's more comments from Breslow, but
I'll try to find it too. Mass Live. Red Sox. Hi, who's ever watching?
Oh, apparently, okay. So it's apparently Zach Scott, who had like 2 stints as assistant GM. He was in baseball ops for like 17 years. Was, I guess, on the Fenway Rundown podcast. So this Cotillo article was like all his thoughts about Werner's full throttle comment. So I guess that's a good like third segue.
Yeah, I mean, if we can kind of talk about all the Werner stuff in general.
Yeah.
So, I'll be back at 5. We're back. Pawn on Lansdowne. No Jake this time, but it's Fitz and Liam here. Back at ya, talking more Boston Red Stockings off-season baseball. If you want to follow us on Twitter, you most certainly can. The show is at Pod on Lansdowne. I am at Fitsimo Pena. Liam is at Liam Fantasy _. He gets the second mention, considering he is not playing hooky today, unlike Jake, who is at Jake Wallinger. If you have a question or comment for us, you are more than welcome to call our voicemail line, 617-420-2431. Leave us a little message there, and it could be featured on the show. Again, it's 617-420-2431. Tom Werner, certified yapper, like your namesake says right there, Liam. Let's get into it. The full throttle era, are we officially calling it over now that he's walked it back?
I would say so. I would say today marked the end.
The throttle is dead. Long live the
It
throttle.
was an unforgettable 3 months, I gotta say.
I mean, it is the ultimate, like, just fuck you to throw right back to FSG.
I mean, it's
like, full
at
throttle, baby.
At the very least, it's gonna go down in Red Sox lore. So we'll be telling our grandkids about the full throttle off season.
I still think we should use it. Like 3 years from now, we draft someone in the Rule 5 draft, 2028 or whatever.
Full throttle.
More than a
We
feel
might as
in
well.
TikTok.
If the team miraculously is,
Is that what the
punching above
sweatshirts are going to say on the dugout?
Yes. the playoff sweatshirts will say full throttle.
You go through the years of the Red Sox playoff runs. 03, Cowboy up. 04,
Yep.
they're the idiots. 13, the bearded brothers. Do damage in 18.
Do damage.
Full throttle in 24.
Hey,
Birthday shirts.
Every good year has a saying for the most part. So
that's our little saying. What was 07? 07 have anything?
Just Bobby Kelty.
Just Bobby. We love Bobby. So, second article, and I guess the third one kind of parlays into that as you looked it over, both from Mass Live. Sean McAdam reporting the major one here. Red Sox's Tom Werner on full throttle vow. Quote, not the most artful comment. Now, right off the bat, Liam, not a saying that anyone has. I'm not talking about full throttle. I'm talking about not the most artful comment. Who fucking... That sounds like he had like a Kamala Harris like short circuit moment, you know what I mean? Like, not the most artful moment. Did you mean to say poetic? That would have made more sense.
Or
not
just
the most
thoughtful
poetic.
in general. It wasn't thoughtful whatsoever.
Yes, yeah, and I guess poems are art, to be fair. So I guess he's not technically wrong. It sounds clunky a little bit. That putting my editor hat on a little bit. Not the most artful comment. Yeah, you're right. You say not the most artful comment is not the most poetic comment, but I digress. Again, mentions the full throttle quote when it came to its approach this offseason for the team. The quote that Mr. Werner provided over the phone to McAdam, quote, such a bullshit quote. Maybe that wasn't the most artful way of saying what I wanted to say, Werner told Mass Live by phone Tuesday afternoon, which is that we're going to be pressing all levers to improve the team. In the end, nobody's happy with our performance the last few years. Some years we go after somebody who's about to be a free agent or was a free agent as it pertains to Trevor Story or Rafi Devers. We felt very strongly that we were going to compete for Yamamoto's services, but in the end he went to another team. But we felt like we were in the mix and we were going to be competitive. We certainly aren't happy with the current roster as it was at the end of last year. So if I was going to say it again, I would say that we're going to be pressing all levers and weren't going to be happy with just one method. That includes free agency, trades, or talents from Triple and Double A. I think that's really what I meant. Another editor thing here. You don't really press levers, do you?
You pull levers.
You
Pull the
pull
lever,
levers!
Gronk.
He had a second chance to fix the quote. And it still sounds like I mean, if you're pressing all the lever, pulling all the levers, I should say, still sounds like you're going full throttle a little bit. You know what I mean? That's a lot of levers. You'll be pulling them.
That's the backup shirt. Pulling levers.
Yeah, the front, full throttle, pulling, PULIN apostrophe levers.
Pulling levers.
Pulling levers on Lansdowne. But yeah, it's a mess in terms of the syntax and the grammar here. It's an absolute mess. But even in terms
I
of the
think I
meaning,
get it because it's a phone interview. Then you're trying to transcribe, so it's like
I still don't like the quote because I still think he's such full of shit here. Again, you want to talk about honesty, transparency compared to the alternative? I think this is the alternative. Reading through this article, I don't believe him here. In the end, this is quoting Werner again. In the end, we don't have a line in terms of our payroll that we look at as much as trusting that Breslow is going to deliver on his assurance that we're going to be competitive. End quote. Cap, I don't believe it. I don't believe that.
That little end piece kind of rubs me the wrong way because you already saw them put Heim. They pushed Heim right under the Mack truck. And now you're like, oh, well, it's on Craig.
Yeah, this feels like another kind of nudging towards like, don't look at us. You don't like the team. Talk to Mr. Breslow over here.
But, I mean, I will say about the initial comment, and I tweeted it before this article even came out, before he walked it back, where literally I was just like Tom Werner mindlessly making the full throttle comment, and it was the certified yapper meme of the cat with its mouth full. And genuinely, I think that's how it played out. Like, I don't think he put any thought into that comment. It was right at the end of the Breslow press conference. So he's probably feeling juiced. And
it's a Michael Scott moment.
Yeah, he just put his foot in his mouth and didn't think
Scott's tots.
Didn't think it would ever come back to bite him. But hey, when, like you said earlier, when the front office is Fort Knox and we're not getting any leaks, there's no word out there, there's no report, we're not hearing from Craig, we're not hearing from John Henry, and that's the only quote we have to run with, buddy, it's Boston. You've been here for 20 years. Like, you better know that's going to get run into the ground. So
it's one thing if like you or I on Twitter say, yeah, we need to go full throttle now. You know what I mean? Yeah, because that's like fucking fan banter. You know what I mean? It's just shoot the shit in the
number two owner.
He's the chairman of the team. He's the chairman. Like, he's a rich guy who has a lot of stock in this.
We never see John Henry anymore, so the only person we see is Tom Werner once in a blue moon. And then outside of that, they just give us Sam Kennedy every time. So, like, if you're only going to speak to the media that often, you need to be picking your words a lot more carefully. And I just think he didn't pay it any mind.
Diarrhea of the mouth.
Yeah, it just came out, and that's what it was, and that's what we had to work with. And boy, did it not go well in hindsight.
Again, I mean, but now as he has a chance to walk this back, there's a lot of bullshit I see in this article too. Mentions here, McAdam mentions ticket prices at Fenway are among the highest in the game, and Werner was asked whether that was inconsistent with the team's current payroll, which for now sits at around $200 million, some $35 million or so shy of the first CBT threshold of 237, which again, like I mentioned a week or two ago, that should not be the be-all, end-all. I understand why they may not want to approach that. It's a philosophical difference. We've mentioned that during the fucking labor negotiations. I don't have to relitigate all that. That's not the fucking point. Werner goes, quote, I think we need to be competitive. We were competitive for the early part of the season last year, and then obviously the wheels came off, but I think the fans expect us to be relentless about a competitive team. The thinking behind the trade that we made in moving Sale, and I have a great fondness for Chris Sale, was not about shedding salary as much as it was having more competitive pitching going forward and more control of competitive pitching. I guess the message is that we are confident that we're going to field a competitive team and that we're going to let Craig do what he does best, which is to build exactly that. It feels like more bullshit.
Putting the onus on Craig. Second
exactly.
time.
No sense of ownership to be like, okay, I understand why people are pissed off about raising the expectations even higher than what it already is, which we're already at a, no pun intended, fever pitch. How high the expectations come with, being a Boston team in general, but definitely the Red Sox. It sounds fucking corny to be like, in Boston it means more, but like it's fucking true. It's a rabid sort of a fan base. Of course the expectations are going to be high, so then when you rile them up with the fucking full throttle quote, of course this is the pushback you're going to get. Of course you're going to be getting questions to see if the Fenway Park experience is worth it. And we'll get into that a little bit later in the show as well, because that's a point I do want to bring up. But, man, it is... Again, going back to your point, it's interesting that these two articles came out on the same day, where one, at least, Breslow is being transparent in his thought process, and the other, I have no reason to believe that Werner is 100% sincere here. What context of that, what prior history of them being 100% honest do I have to go off if I don't? I think he's full of shit again.
I don't understand kind of what happened to ownership. And it's Tom Werner especially, and I know he's just kind of like a goober to begin with, but
let's go Red Sox.
There's a quote in Francona's book that I always come back to, and it stood out for just God knows the reason, but it stuck with me for years, where I guess it was the final day of the season in 2006. We weren't making the playoffs because everyone got hurt in the second half. They still won 86 games, and I think Tom Werner was on the field with Tito and was just kind of like, man, what a shit year. And Tito's was kind of taken back because he was like, man, we still won 86 games with half a roster. And it's just kind of now you hear comments from Werner, and I'm just like, I don't know, man. It's not the same guy. I don't know. And this total talks sports talk radio now, but it's I don't know if they really have the same. I don't know if there's that much gusto there anymore. There's not enough juice.
They have their four rings. They're looking to expand their portfolio now. Again, people getting upset about the Mbappe rumors and whatnot. That's totally different money than what the Red Sox are dealing with FSG. I understand the optics of that don't seem great, but your Reds aren't going to be getting Mbappe in the first place. But even if they did, that's separate money. That's not that doesn't impact Red Sox operations, as far as I understand it.
I will laugh my ass off though if John Henry, we learned today, is not going to Winter Weekend over scheduling conflict. And Liverpool are playing at Bournemouth on Sunday. So it's not at Anfield, so I don't expect him to be there.
Yeah, he goes.
It would be so funny if he ends up at Bournemouth.
Away to Bournemouth, right? Yeah. It'd be one thing if it was
he loves the South Coast.
If that was if it was if it's this upcoming Arsenal Liverpool game, if it's United, right? Or if they're playing City, even if they're playing Everton, that's the local rival, you know what I mean? Yeah. Even if maybe the last time he gets to see maybe it's the last time he gets to see Goodison Park again in Everton. Shout out Dan Secatore. He's a toffee. Man, that would be fucking hilarious if he ditches this.
As soon as
AFC
I saw
Bournemouth
the scheduling conflict, I went to look at Liverpool's schedule, and I wish it was if it was a Friday afternoon or Saturday game, I'd be like, okay, he might definitely be there. Since it's Sunday and away, I don't think he will. But you never know.
Never know. It would be funny. I think that would make it worth it to miss Winter Weekend. But back to the point, the optics of, if they were to somehow get Kylian Mbappe, Liverpool, the optics of that in a Red Sox context wouldn't be great. and sometimes perception can be reality. Adding the Penguins to your portfolio doesn't look great optics wise. Now they want to get into the NBA. Like the worst kept secret is that they're going to partner with LeBron to get the expansion team in Vegas. You know, it's the worst kept secret.
There was someone put out on Twitter, and I'll preface this. I have no idea how the money works, but it was an interesting, at least, comment that made me think. Like, they're about to invest so much money in these real estate projects right around Fenway. I don't know how that money.
I think Jen McCaffrey of The Athletic pointed that out.
Did she? Because I didn't see a full article on it or anything, but it was like, I don't know. And this is something we could talk about for months, because who knows when that project's even starting. But I don't know how that money works. So that would be a more legitimate gripe if they're like, oh, we're holding on to money for the real estate projects as opposed to investing in the team. Because that would make more sense to me, that those funds are more connected because it's a Red Sox project backed by FSG. So I don't know how that money works. Maybe I sound like an idiot to someone who actually understands this. And
any real estate knowers, please slide into the DMs.
Come on. We'd like, because I mean, God, all these sports teams, man, it's real estate projects around the ballpark. So I don't know if that money comes into play or not. I imagine it doesn't. Let's be real. Just like the Liverpool stuff, that money doesn't cross over. But I don't know. You're investing all this money. You're literally named Fenway Sports Group. We're talking full throttle at a certain point.
That does boost the valuation of the Red Sox, though, down the line. If you're revitalizing the area, or adding your yuppie shops and whatnot, you know what I mean?
I just can't see the team or the ownership group that's named Fenway Sports Group ever selling the Red Sox. I just can't. I can't wrap my head around that. I don't think it'll ever happen. I think that's a pipe dream. And those are my thoughts on them selling, because I don't think it's happening. I think Linda will be the principal owner if and when, you know.
Well, it happens to us all. So,
hey.
Jesus. But again, like, you're right. It does. You kind of just have to ask yourself to it. I mean, because Henry was the guy who would like respond personally to emails to fans who were upset back in the day. Before 2000, like, he would, like, someone wrote to him and said something about, like, oh, we need to do this. Like, he would take the time out to write back. That's anecdotal. There's a friend of mine who has been a season ticket holder, and he said, you know, sent that along once, and he got a personal reply from Henry. He would never fucking do that in a million years.
No, speaking of, like, just like,
this is not an interest.
Personalized stuff, and this is such a minor gripe. And I know we made a joke about it on Twitter that we had to take down after the fact.
I wonder who sent it.
But as a season ticket holder, I got a Christmas card from the Red Sox. And
wait, that was you who said that.
Yeah.
Oh, so I was applying Jacob.
I didn't end up making the meme or sending the tweet. As disclaimer.
Okay, because it was Jake.
But, you know, it's just like you got a little Christmas card, you got a little ornament, and I don't know, there wasn't anything like personal about it. It doesn't, like, I don't know. The Red Sox to me, like, it feels like a community. Like, you know, it's the whole point. You and I and Jake have gotten to know each other through the Red Sox.
Yes.
And I've gotten to know so many other people through the Red Sox. So it's like, I don't know. I think I want the organization to sort of show that they understand that, whether or not it's, you know, just little things like, I don't know, you toss Sam Kennedy or Alex Cora's signature on your little Christmas card, be like, oh, that's a nice touch.
Yeah, even if it's like, printed, you know what I mean?
It's like, it's just little things like that where you're like, okay, well, thanks for the Christmas card.
Which, in a like, if you don't fucking follow this, first of all, if you don't follow this and you're at this point of the podcast, what the fuck are you doing? Like, put on some music or something like that, man. Like, this is not the spot you want to be. But you're right. Like, you could be on the outside of this sort of bubble looking in and be like, that's a ridiculous thing to complain about. You didn't get just a boilerplate thing to it. But I agree with it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, is this just another part of the fucking portfolio for FSG, or do they truly care about this shit?
Yeah,
and I think they did a better job of showing that they cared about the shit in the past.
Yes, I agree. But yeah, no, I will. No, well, I can't preface it anymore, but I will say like the the Christmas card irking me definitely comes from a place of I have worked in a professional baseball front office before, and the people I worked with like made a point to do those little things. So when I see or I receive something or see something from like my childhood team and it lacks that little touch, I
Yeah.
think that's what irks me, where it's like that feels like it would be a no-brainer, but now I'm just rambling.
Yeah,
I'm just
but
airing, I'm
it's
airing grievances.
another anecdotal
Most
thing.
most minor, but
Another anecdotal thing to bring up. There's a friend of mine who worked for another MLB team in their season ticket office, and he's like, you need to give all those like little things all the time. You know what I mean? That's just good business in the first place. But then also to add on to it, like again, it's a fucking communal thing. I've said this on the show before, and I'll say it again. Sports are not a directly transactional thing. It's not just all business as people want to make it out to be, at least from a fandom perspective. You know, this is community that we're talking about. These are things that are passed down from generation to generation. You know what? This is actually a really good point to transition into my Fenway point. So
oh yeah, this
let me take a
hey,
quick step away, and then I'll continue this point right away.
our
All right?
our rant. We're airing grievances.
It's you'll listen, you'll hear. Taking a step away, and then we'll go right back into it. All right, we're back. I don't want to forget my point. I didn't want to wait too long there onto the pause, but that'll be a fine enough of a pause for the show. So, anyways, talking about community in terms of sports, how it's not just transactional stuff. I'm able to write in podcast about the Red Sox because I've been shooting the shit with guys like you mentioned, you alluded to a couple minutes ago. Guys like you, guys like Jake, friends that we've made all over the timeline who have their own podcasts or writing on their own blogs. It's great to read all that, listen to all of that, and come together as a community for it. It's not just this business transaction A to B, which is a good transition into some things that I've seen. This is anecdotal too. But on the timeline, there's been a lot of discourse that I've noticed, and I'm sure you've noticed the same thing, Liam. And I hear it. I think a good litmus test is hearing it from your dad. I hear it from my dad in terms of like, ooh, there are going to be less and less people at the stands at Fenway Park. And the things you see online, again, the things I hear from my dad, there's people suggesting that they're just not going to follow the team, go to Fenway. All of that, I think, is 100% justified. People doing that. I also think it's 100% justified if people still want to like be sickos like us, watch game in and game out, go to Fenway whenever you can. I think people are justified 100% one way or the other. When you have what appears to be an apathetic sort of a ownership group, I can 100% understand why people wouldn't want to spend their hard-earned money on the team, right? You know, you are in you feels like you have a personal stake when you're buying tickets, you're buying $45 beers, you're getting hats, you're getting snacks, all that kind of stuff. You're doing that even a couple times a year. To then not see that money as you perceive it being invested back into the roster and then saying, you know, I'm not going to provide money to this. I'm not providing, you know, more financial, you know, I can't even think of the fucking word. Just money. How about that? Just put it simple. I'm not giving more money to this entity that prints fucking money. I can 100% understand that. On the other end of it, like if you do want to spend your money there at Fenway Park, I mean, around that community, going with friends, just enjoying an entertaining day at the park just because you love baseball and you love the Red Sox, you followed them for years, I 100% am cool with that. I'm more in that camp. Like, I'm still going to go to fucking Fenway. You know what I mean? Maybe that makes me a sucker. Maybe that makes me part of the problem. You can think that all day. I don't give a fuck. You can say that all you want. I enjoy going to Fenway. I enjoy being taken out to the ball game. I just like watching baseball in person, and I've followed this team my entire fucking life. I am too far gone. I will be going to Fenway. But if you do want to take the stance of I'm not going to Fenway because I don't feel like they deserve my money, that's 100% justified too. Is that a middleman sort of take? 100%. I'm fine with people making fun of me saying middleman fits or some shit like that. That's fine.
Centricity.
Yeah, centrist. Yeah, we're lefty, righty, and centristy here. Respect. I'm holding blood feast here for respectable bipartisan. Please God, let us let us nuke Yankee Stadium just one more time before I die. But it's just there are people staunchly one way or the other. Like I'm still going. People who are boycotting are crazy, or like I'm not giving my money to this. You're part of the problem if you're going to Fenway. It's neither. Like FSG is still going to make a ton of money one way or the other, and maybe if they saw some empty people in the stands, maybe that would change their tune, or maybe they would see that as a sign not to invest. Oh, people don't actually care. I don't fucking know the answer to that one way or the other.
That's a great point. Like I have no idea what they're ever thinking. They switch up
I have
every
no
12
idea.
months.
So what I know,
thinking, what the strategy
right?
is,
Exactly.
what the message is.
What I know is I've done this shit for almost about as long as I can remember. Not podcasting, just being a Red Sox fan. You know what I mean? I'm still gonna watch. I'm still gonna sit through the fucking Dining Playbook and Charlie Moore Outdoors commercials on Nessun just about every night. I'm not full 162. I'm gonna have a thing to do every now and again, but I'd say I probably watch about 150 or so fucking games every year. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be live tweeting it. And if I'm at the game, I'll sing fucking Sweet Caroline. I'll buy expensive beers. I'll be there with friends and family all the time. But if you don't want to be a part of that because you're not, you feel disenfranchised by the ownership group in the product that's being put on the field, I also can't blame you there. So I wanted to get that all off of my chest, and I wanted to open it to you to see what you thought about that, because I've noticed that way more in the last week or two, discourse like that.
Yes, it definitely, at least I've noticed in my own mentions on Twitter, there feels like tons of people within the last month are very much have taken the side of, I'm not going. Why would I go? If you're going, you're a pink hat. You're part of the problem.
They also probably thought that they thought of the term pink hat, by the way.
Yes,
that was actually my thing. I thought of that with my buddies. Yeah.
Which I didn't even realize we were still calling people pink hats 20 years after the fact. But apparently the term is still around. And I mean, Fitz, I think your take is the reasonable take. If you don't want to go and until you see a product worth paying for, go for it. That's you're within your right. And
yeah.
I if I was in a completely different position and had seen how the last 5 years played out, the messaging from ownership changing every which way. The only real investment you've gotten is the Devers extension over the last 5 years. I mean, I agree. I mean, I don't see why you would want to come out until there's, until you, I guess, what's the way I want to phrase this? See the level of care from ownership put into the team that you feel towards the team.
Right.
So I totally understand those people. I don't understand them ripping on people that are going to go and still have a good time.
Yeah. It's none of your fucking business.
Live
your
personally,
life.
Yeah. It's me personally, and Jake said this was a Tiny Tim ass tweet the other day, but re-boycotting Fenway. I was like, I grew up in Maryland. So my memories of Fenway are all very recent. I went one time as a child in 2002. Outside of that, all my memories of baseball as a kid were at Camden Yards. So me seeing the Red
Oriole
Sox
Park at Camden Yards, I'll have you know. Okay.
Yes, sorry, the proper term.
We don't want to get sued.
But so I'm this is gonna be the second season. I've lived up here by myself full time, so it's I'm still gonna be there no matter what, because this is something I have missed out on for years. And so I don't care. I mean, obviously I care if the team is good or not, but I'm going to be there because it's something I haven't had the chance to experience to the extent I've always wanted to, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it sounds cringe. It sounds too earnest for this podcast, but
Yeah,
It's the truth.
not very postmodern of you to
Yeah.
sincerity post right now, Mr. Fantasy.
I was I almost responded to Jake the other day to his when he was like Tiny Tim ass tweet when I was like I'm gonna be there no matter what. God, there's a meme I have where it's like
Of course, there's a fucking meme. Yeah.
nice ironic post, bro. Now try saying something true, something beautiful.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So
Sincerity is Scary, the 1975 great song. But again, it's just a matter of do what you feel empowered to do whatever makes you feel happy, fulfilled, etc., on it. Again, if you think that you're by withholding your power of the almighty dollar, like if that empowers you as a Red Sox fan, if that's what you think is doing the right thing, do it up. If you think I'm a fucking ownership shill, then I don't know. You didn't hear the first fucking 40 minutes of this podcast, apparently. But second of all, it's fine. You can think what you want. But again, Fenway's a place you go with. I go with family members, friends to catch up with, have a good time, act like a fucking donkey, and hopefully watch the Red Sox win a fucking game. Like, that's just been a part of life for me, and that's just a part of life that's never going to change. I'm too far gone. And another thing, now that I think of it, people who are saying that they're going to boycott, I'm curious to see how many of them actually hold to that. I mean, there's no way to prove it, right? There's no way to like fucking say, 40% of people, you crossed the picket line of boycotting.
Give me your bank account info. I'm going to watch these transactions.
Yeah, right. Give the assassination coordinates so we know at all times if
$60 at the Truly Terrace.
Interesting. Yeah, right. It's like Columbo. So, just one more thing. I couldn't help but notice that there were 3 cups of the Kettle One lemonade vodka in your car last night.
You saw souvenir popcorn under Aramark. What is that for?
I couldn't help but notice, but you're wearing Greece Heritage Pride jersey from the Red Sox that were only given out in 2024. Could you explain how you got that?
I will say
some of those people who say, I'm not going, you're going to be right there before Memorial Day weekend going, ba, ba, ba. Like, you'll be there with me, man. It's fine. You are more than welcome to join. You'll be right there with me.
And I get people being angry. It's winter.
Yes.
It's dark. The team hasn't done anything. So be angry. There's been a lot of negativity on Red Sox Twitter this winter anyway. So, hey, we'll still get our jokes off. Well, whether they're negative or positive. But I do think, like, I don't know, just to put like a bow on this, it's like, I don't know, going to Fenway and watching the Red Sox it's so much bigger than John Henry. So it's like, if you think not going to a game or two next year is really going to stick it to John Henry, I don't think he's going to pay any mind to.
Now, if it's a lot, then maybe. But again, I don't know what the fucking FSU reaction to that would be.
I mean, Christ, all the visiting fans we saw last year, they're still going to show up this year.
Mm-hmm.
Blue Jays fans were out in force. Mets fans were out in force. Dodgers fans ran the place.
Yeah, they're still going to get the money. I mean, that if anything should be a fucking embarrassment to FSG, it should be that.
When it's the opposing fans filling the ballpark.
That's what it. But on the flip side of that,
money.
FSG's still eating there. You know what I mean?
Money's money. Green is green.
Right. That's. Yeah. I don't know. It's not a straightforward sort of a topic, and I don't mean to completely undermine people who do feel empowered to boycott. I want to make that explicitly clear. If that's something that you feel strongly about, you should be 100% empowered to do that. I shouldn't be the one to say, to be the fucking arbiter of that, nor should anyone. That's your hard-earned money. You work fucking 40 hours a week for that money. You spend it how you see fit. But on the flip side of that, I don't know. I fucking like going to baseball games. I'm going to keep going to baseball games. If that makes me a fucking bootlicker, if that makes me a fucking shill, then whatever. Scabby Mo Pena.
So
back there. Yeah. Scabby the rap. So I just wanted to bring that up because I've noticed it the last couple of days.
Yeah, we're part of the problem, though. I'll tell you that.
It's me.
I've heard it from several people now. So.
Yeah. Well, if they say it on Twitter, it has to be
That's
true.
right. It's exactly. I saw it on the internet.
Al Gore's internets. Yes. Oh, man. It's kind of cool that, I mean, I like the community point that you mentioned, though. It is like, that's, again, sports is not just a fucking bottom line enterprise. It's not I'm not rooting for the bottom line to look great for FSG. That's not what you fucking root for. And some would say, well, you root for laundry. Well, kind of, yes, but the laundry, it's more than laundry. Again, you build friendships off of this. You do podcasts with bad fucking microphones with that shit. You know what I mean? You get that passed down from your parents. You pass it down to your kids down the line, and you can share that bond over generations. And if people want to live that out in person, via con Dios. That's what I say. And if you feel strongly enough that you don't want to, if you don't like the ownership that much that you don't want to give their money, 100% via con Dios too. So I'm repeating myself at this point, but I wanted to get that all out there.
This has been sincerity on Lansdowne.
Yeah, honesty on Lansdowne, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So we were feeling a little hopeless the first half of the program. Second half here, we're ripping. So
yeah, ripping and tearing.
Yeah.
All right, irony back on. Fucking baseball, stupid.
Shit. Like time to shit post.
Yeah, right. I don't give a shit about baseball. So, all right, is that it? Do we have anything? Oh, the fucking the fan fiction. Shit. Shit.
Good call. While you pull that up, I will say if you're going to Winter Weekend this weekend, send us pics. We will not be there.
We got to get to a Winter Weekend though. At some point,
maybe next year. I would go in a heartbeat. But I don't have a car, so I can't drive there.
I have a car.
Yeah. So,
do that.
Might be too late now. No, probably not. I'm sure there's still plenty of tickets available.
Yeah. Could you hit the tables, play some craps?
Watch Cops Town Hall.
Yeah, Cinco Ocho. I actually have no idea how to play craps. I mentioned playing craps there a second ago. I don't know how craps works.
I've played a couple times. I'm terrible at it. Just watch out for the field. Hang out in the field. I'm telling you.
Again, I don't know.
Craps, they'll know.
I don't know. I don't know what that means. Obviously know how to play blackjack. I know how to play like Hold'em. I'm not good at Hold'em, but I know how to play it. Okay, here we go. So this is from Seth at Smiley Smile 31. Also shout out to Smiley Smile Beach Boys. If you recall last week, I don't even know specifically how we called for some fan fiction, some Pawn on Lansdowne fan fiction.
Yeah, well, so yeah, I guess if you weren't here last week, we really got off the rails in the last 10, 15 minutes like we usually do. And we began to reminisce about Sports Illustrated swimsuit editions as one does.
Like perverts, you see.
Yeah, of course. Thinking back to our more hormonal days. And God, Jake pulled up a website that was like fan fiction written by SI models or about SI models, something along those lines. So
not by us.
Yes, not by us. Under a pen name. But so that's how the fan fiction came up. I still don't quite understand it fully myself, but then we had one of our beautiful listeners write us a piece.
Seth, who's always Johnny on the spot with the with the emojis that we give out. Also, emoji for the week, pencil and paper. How about that? Because we're talking about writing. Pencil and paper. Sure. So from Seth at Smiley Smile 31. If you don't like it, direct all animosity towards them. Liam glanced at Jake, unwilling to meet eyes and with sweat beating down his brow. They both knew where the night was heading. The tension and excitement in the air was blooming like an early April lilac, the season to start anew. Fitz will be so jealous if we without him, Jake said with an unnerving tenderness in his voice. I can't keep this in any longer, Liam responded as he put his hand gently on Jake's shoulder. Both of their phones buzzed repeatedly with texts from Fitz asking where they were on this Tuesday evening, blocked out for recording, unaware that they were together and avoiding the judgment he'd be sure to saddle them with. Jake texted back that they'd only need 5 minutes. Liam followed up with a maybe 10 shortly after. Ow! The two young men smiled at each other and were finally ready for the main event. They leaned in slowly on the edge of their seats. I've waited my whole life to do this with you, Liam said, and Jake beamed back, clearly feeling the same. Jake pressed play and they watched Pablo Reyes hit a walk-off grand slam over and over and over. Fitz could wait a little longer. End scene. Bravo!
That was beautiful.
Seth really, Shakespeare over here.
Just the imagery was so rich.
Yeah, like detail. The sweat on the brows. Yeah,
I felt like I was there.
So. Yeah, some goosebumps.
Maybe I was.
The twist ending there with Pablo.
Hey, what else would we be doing? Get your head out of the gutter. Oh. May have lost Fitz.
You still there?
Oh, he's back. Yes.
I can't hear you. Okay, all right. Something I hit. Again, this old fucking laptop. Like it just
your screen just disappeared.
Yeah. All right. So I'm back. Okay.
Yeah, you're back now. You're good. Technical difficulties.
One more thought before we go. Bringing it quickly back to the Tom Werner full throttle comment.
Oh, good note, because I forgot to bring up the other Coutinho piece. I had a bit to mention there.
Okay, you mentioned that bit, and then mine's more of a jokey thing to kind of wrap up the show. But what
are you going to well, this is really just okay. So Coutinho put out a piece on Mass Live earlier tonight. I guess So Zach Scott was on the Fenway Rundown podcast. He had been in the Red Sox front office for almost 20 years, and he was asked about the Tom Werner comments. And just from like a baseball executive standpoint, to hear him say this also makes you like, well, I wonder if Craig most likely shares the same thoughts or feelings to a certain extent. But so Zach had said this. He said, in regards to Full Throttle, I think it's always risky to make those kind of statements because you can't predict market behavior very well. When I heard that, the former baseball executive in me cringed a little bit because it's, oh man, you're setting an expectation. Maybe they'll be able to reach it. I believe that's the intention. I think when Tom said that, that's how he was viewing things. What they may define as Full Throttle may be different than what maybe a fan defines it as. And I don't think you could really put it much more succinctly than that.
Yeah.
Where Tom was feeling himself. That's what he said. Wasn't thinking about how a fan would see it at the time. And once you kind of let that cat out of the bag, and you don't do anything.
Yeah, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube.
Right. So it's like at that point, you're putting yourself in a position, you're setting yourself up for failure. So again, foot and mouth.
The best case scenario is that you meet those expectations in the off season, and again, that doesn't necessarily translate to regular season or postseason success. But the best case scenario is that you tread water in that regard. You meet that expectation.
Yeah.
The worst case is it fucking crashes and burns. But with that in mind, with March also coming up, we might have to do like a FSG March Madness bracket of like all the ownership gaffes, like funny moments.
Ooh. I like that idea a lot.
I think
actually.
Werner's "Let's Go Red Sox" chant. He just wanted to start a cheer. I think that might be the number one overall seed.
I feel like that's a 1 seed. Yeah.
Full Throttle has to be up there. The Lucchino's letter, or was it Lucchino? Or was that also Werner?
No, I think it was Lucchino, right? It might have been. It could have been
the jovial Mike Avila's and affable Cody Ross, like
gregarious Alfredo.
The splendid Marco Scudero and like that fucking letter. Yeah,
that one's in there. That's a top seed for sure.
Henry's letter to fans after they traded Mookie, and he wrote to the fans, will be like, well, when I was a young whippersnapper, if they traded Rogers Hornsby from the St. Louis Crawdaddies, like, that was pretty bad. We might have to brainstorm that. Tweet at us at Pod on Lansdowne if you have any more FSG kind of blunders over the years. So,
I like that. That's a good idea. We can flesh that out.
FSG Frenzy instead of March Madness. Kind of workshop that a little bit. So In any event, for Jake, in parts unknown, it's actually very much known. It's Los Angeles, California. But for Jake,
Tinseltown.
for Liam, I'm Fitz. You've been you. Thank you as always for spending your time with us. We will talk to you next week. Hopefully, all three of us, the trio, will be back together. But until then, go Sox against all odds, and obey your mother.
I was giving Jake some time. Obey your mother.